This week on Inside the NFL, they're all hailing the new chief. Joe Montana played his first game for Kansas City.
Did you go to belly and then audible out of it, or did you call it something different in the huddle?
I called belly and then audible, did 200 jet dragon.
And on this week's cover story, the former 49er talking about his return to football after 2 seasons snuffed by injury.
The excitement's back. The last 2 years were very difficult mentally and physically, but that goes without saying.
And now, the show the pros watch, Inside the NFL, with your hosts, Len Dawson, Nick Monacotti, and Chris Collinsworth.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the longest-running show in cable history. This begins our 17th season. I'm very happy to be joined with my co-host, to my right, Mr. Chris Collinsworth, starting his 4th year, and to my left, the one and only, Mr. Nick Monacotti, starting his 15th season. This is my 16th.
Speaking of the number 16, Mr. Dawson, how much longer are you going to make Joe Montana wear that upside-down number in Kansas City?
You know, everything is negotiable. They just haven't given me a deal I can't refuse. But
Ricky
Joe,
Henderson.
Joe doesn't care about that number. He wants the opportunity to compete, opportunity to win another Super Bowl.
You know, Chris always wanted to compete, so he competed this summer, Lenny. He had a tryout with the Colts. I don't mean the Indianapolis Colts. I mean those four-legged Colts. Look at this.
How did this thing come out?
You guys are tough, boys.
Photo finish. Thank goodness for Chris's long nose, or that wouldn't have been close at all.
Very funny. Thank you both very much for bringing this up. Can we please get on with the show now?
All right, all right. This is going to be a landmark year because of free agency. The guy, I think, that really hit the jackpot, Reggie White, went from $1.8 million to $4.5 million a year to play and win with Green Bay.
Yeah, great for Reggie White. I'm not so sure it's good for the Green Bay Packers. You know, unlike the situation in Dallas, in which Jerry Jones can basically say, listen, I don't care what they paid Thurman Thomas in Buffalo. Emmitt Smith, you are not getting that kind of money. It's not good for this franchise. But in Green Bay, it's a totally different story. They've gone out on a limb, paid Reggie White all that money. Then what happens when their young stars like a Brett Favre, Sterling Sharp come back and say, listen, I want what Reggie's getting. Going to have a real problem with that salary cap.
What you're talking about, guys, is that the stars in the offseason have been the owners and the general managers, not the coaches and the players. Look at Cincinnati's Mike Brown. He kept the vault closed and took any chance of Cincinnati winning right out of it. On the other hand, the Denver Broncos' Pat Bowlen, he went for the gold by paying the gold. He wanted to protect John Elway. He went out and got 3 great offensive linemen, Habib, Zimmerman, and Maggs. Watch Denver this year.
You guys are off on a roll on our very first show. You know, the Saints took a somewhat different approach. They got rid of a couple of their top stars, quarterback Bobby Hebert, linebacker Pat Swilling, with their high prices, signed 10 of their own free agents, guys that were not demanding a whole lot of money. So we're going to be watching this story very closely all year long. Still, the biggest story in Week 1 was the start of the Montana era, which opened in Florida. Meanwhile, a team which has long carried Super Bowl aspirations, the Oilers, suffered a setback. Detroit's Barry Sanders began with a bang, and in Chicago, on both sidelines, we saw a changing of the guard.
Familiar faces in new places. That would be Dan Reeves on the left, withholding coaching secrets from Bears rookie head coach Dave Wannstedt. What Reeves never said was that Lawrence Taylor is back at full strength. LT added 2 more sacks to a career that appears far from over, but he could not prevent the Bears' go-ahead score. As the Giants began staging a second-half comeback, receiver Mark Jackson thought he'd do something special after his first touchdown as a Giant. Well, call it what you will, but what was special was 15-year veteran Phil Simms' winning touchdown pass with a minute left in the game.
Fakes to Happy, throws a pass. Complete touchdown, a bunch.
And truly special was the way Lawrence Taylor put an end to the Bears' hopes for a last-second score. The Giants take on Tampa Bay this week, where all eyes will follow the comeback of number 56. Opening in Detroit is another number 56, who's been making an impact as well. Former Saints linebacker Pat Swilling has been getting a lot of attention in the Motor City, but no one on the Falcons seemed to pay him any mind. The Lions sacked Chris Miller 6 times and held the Falcons to 21 yards on the ground. And while the Lions had a new-look defense, there was something very familiar about their offense.
Play to Barry, room off the left side, breaks it to the 20, to the 15, to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown, Lions. Barry Sanders.
Since Barry Sanders arrived 4 seasons ago, no other Lions running back has scored a touchdown. It was give-and-take football. Barry took, and the Falcons gave.
Chris Miller looking to throw again. Over the middle, tip, intercepted, Jameson. This will be a touchdown. Yes! Touchdown, Lions. Tipped and returned 35 yards.
If Chris Miller is to take advantage of any incentive clauses in his contract, he'll have to wait until this Sunday's matchup against the Saints. Meanwhile, new Oiler defensive coordinator Buddy Ryan was looking for a pay raise after the fine job he did in the preseason. But his first real test came in New Orleans, where the Saints gave the Buddy system a failing grade.
Behind quarterback Wade Wilson, hands off to Dalton Hilliard, skips over one blocker, into the end zone for the touchdown. It's now a Saints lead.
The Oilers' offense didn't fare much better by turning the ball over 5 times.
And a fumble. The Saints pick it up, 45-40. Frank Warren will score. Unbelievable. 48-yard fumble return. The sack was by Sam Mills.
A visibly perplexed Jack Pardee can only wonder what's in store this week when the Oilers meet the Chiefs and Joe Montana. Last Sunday, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers faced the challenging task of trying to spoil Joe Montana's highly publicized comeback with the Chiefs.
Now, enough said about the opposition. It doesn't matter who you play. That doesn't even matter who you play. It's how you play. Now, let's just get out there and bring to life everything we've been working on for months and months and months. Everything you've been dreaming of doing since you've been playing this game. That means that nobody, men, stops short of the end of this ball game. Nobody stops short of the end of each play. But we keep making ourselves have that wake-up call. Wake up, sharpen up, concentrate. That's all we need.
Many have said that all the Chiefs have needed was a quarterback. And against the Bucs, Joe Montana showed that he still had all the tools that a great one needs. Joe proved to be the quick, clear thinking field general and championship-caliber passer that the Chiefs haven't had since the days of Len Dawson.
Did you call? All right, now, did you go to belly and then audible out of it, or did you call something different in the huddle?
I called belly and then audible to 200 Jet Dragon.
Went from belly to 200 Jet Dragon on the audible.
First and 10 for the Buccaneer 19. Back to pass. Joe Montana sets up, winds up, hesitates, now throws a pass into the end zone. A diving catch, touchdown! Willie Davis between 2 Buccaneer defenders. And folks, as they say, this could be the start of something big.
Hey, listen, it's 10-3. It's a 1 touchdown. Let's just get in this game. The second half, so we come back. We've been down 20-3 and 1 going away. Nothing's going on here except we got a hard-fought battle, but every play is important now. Every play.
Few quarterbacks have ever understood the importance of every play better than number 19. And against the Bucs, Montana made his plays count.
Over the shoulder, cut to the 10 by J.J. They'll chase him into the end zone. Touchdown!
Trailing in the third quarter, the sluggish Bucs offense got a wake-up call.
It's still just 2. Nothing's happened since halftime. They're just methodically eating that clock up, trying to get things going. All we have to do is get one job going, get back into the game. It's all different. Everything. Wake up! You're looking at me like I'm not even talking. You're not hearing me. Get your ass in gear. Somebody help your teammate up.
Unfortunately for Weiss, sleepwalking blocking and an aggressive Chiefs defense kept the Bucs from scoring a touchdown all day long.
Think! Wake up! Wake up!
The Chiefs, on the other hand, moved confidently on the arm of their new quarterback.
Looks right, dumps it off at the 10-yard line to Marcus. He's on the 5. He almost breaks a tackle. He dives in. Touchdown down the near sideline.
By the fourth quarter, both head coaches were looking to inspire. One to finish, the other to forget.
They are flat on their ass. They got no hope.
16/give us the play. Fair King right.
We got 3 touchdown lead. The only thing that puts them in a game is if we get careless with the ball. Let's not lose our edge.
Now look, we get the ball back. We'll get the ball back with about 3 or 4 minutes to go. When we get it back, we're going to put the ball in the end zone and finish that way. That's the way you finish the game. You don't finish it feeling sorry for yourself. We'll go spread and we'll go regular. Now we need some protection so that we can get some things done and get ourselves ready for next week. This one is probably gone, but the season is not. The preparation for the season is not over. We just lost a game along the way. Okay. Now let's get our minds and look at the bigger picture. Don't worry about a small one. All right.
When it was over, the Chiefs had buried the Bucs. And this week, they hope to find the Oilers as gracious a host as Tampa Bay.
Hey, congratulations. You've forgotten nothing. You're learning more.
Good luck.
Say hello to Jennifer for us.
Sam Weiss, who was Joe Montana's first quarterback coach with the San Francisco 49ers, of course, was referring to Joe's wife, Jennifer. He should have said hello to the kids, too, but I'll assure you this, that Joe Montana is not going to get the same reception and hospitality when he goes to the Dome in Houston to play the Oilers this week. What do you think of the Montana era?
Well, listen, Joe Montana is not only a great quarterback, the great asset that he brought is the Bill Walsh-trained offensive coordinator, Paul Hackett. Hackett is now running the offense for the Kansas City Chiefs, which means, finally, thank goodness, it's going to retire that smash-mouth, losing big back, one-dimensional offense of Marty Schottenheimer's. It's finally on the shelf. Creativity is back on the offense in Kansas City. They're going to need it this week because they play the Houston Oilers' bombastic Buddy Ryan and his bounty hunters.
That was beautiful, man. That was beautiful, wasn't it? You know, we've all heard the rumors this week that Buddy Ryan has a bounty out on Joe Montana's head. I just don't buy that one at all. But I do think that he's told his defensive linemen, William Fuller and Sean Jones and Ray Childress, hey, listen, the easiest way for us to win this football game is to get Joe Montana back in the training room. And let's face it, Joe's going to be facing that all season long.
Yeah, and Joe hurt his wrist last week, and he's questionable for this game. But if he is healthy, it's the defense, not the offense, particularly the secondary that Kansas City's worried about because they have a lot of new people back there, people who haven't worked together for very long. And when you play the run and shoot with 4 wideouts, you need 5, 6, and 7 defensive backs. I would look for Warren Moon to try to exploit that inexperienced secondary. Now, Mr. Buonacani, talking about the team that doesn't lose, they've been to the playoffs 3 years in a row. What about this game?
Well, if I was Marty Schottenheimer, I would keep Joe Montana on the bench this week, rest his wrist, and prepare for the rest of the year because Houston's going to win with or without him.
All right. They still have 2 great pass rushers, Derek Thomas and Neil Smith, and their defensive line this year has more depth than they did a year ago. They'll put the heat on Warren Moon, and they'll win.
I thought you hit on the key earlier. Kansas City secondary isn't nearly as good as that Saints secondary that really embarrassed Houston last week. Houston and Warren Moon, they should bounce back this week. I like the Oilers.
Well, when all is said and done, the key is going to be Joe Montana. Speaking of Joe Montana, the quarterback of the 80s, he's trying to bring the Chiefs a Super Bowl title in the 90s. This future Hall of Famer may have a new team, but he's got the same old attitude, as we see in this week's cover story.
Whitey Tittle told me one time, he says, you know, kid, he said, they'll love you when you're young. In the middle, they may hate you, but if you're doing well, they'll like you. But then again, when you get old, they'll love you again no matter what. So it's kind of gone that way.
And so goes the love affair that people in sport have with Joe Montana, an athlete who refused to believe his career was over, refused to accept retirement, 4 Super Bowl rings, and the Hall of Fame as payment for his 14 years spent in San Francisco. Number 16 couldn't end it that way.
The excitement's back. The last 2 years were very difficult mentally and physically. To be able to put all that behind me, put all the critics behind me, the guys who would say I would never throw again and never play again, and kept analyzing my arm to be something that it really wasn't, and it feels good. It feels great, actually.
I look back at my career in broadcasting, and I think of the Len Dawsons, I think of the Theismann, I think of the Joe Namath, the class people, the outstanding athletes over the past 30 years. They all have an aura about them. They have a winning aura. When they step on the field, there's a certain excitement that begins and makes the people get excited. It makes the teammates get excited. When they're on the field, they seem to work better as a team unit to get the ball into the end zone. That's what Joe Montana is bringing back to this team.
something Kansas City's been searching for the past 17 years, a quarterback to rekindle the Len Dawson magic of the 60s and early 70s.
I want to introduce the greatest quarterback in pro football, Len Dawson.
In fact, since Dawson retired, the Chiefs have drafted 10 quarterbacks, including 2 in the first round, 2 in the second round. They signed 1 unknown and 2 veteran starters as free agents, traded for 2 others, and signed MVPs from 2 other pro leagues. But this time, Joe Montana brings the one ingredient that's been missing from the recipe.
These people have been talking about winning a Super Bowl. Montana could come in here and he can say, hey, I'll show you what it takes to win a Super Bowl. He has been there, and these people know it. A lot of times they really don't know how hard they have to work to get to and win a Super Bowl. Joe Montana does.
And if there ever was one Chief who knew what it took to win it all, it's Len Dawson, a player Montana used to imitate as a kid growing up.
You would see a lot of them because they were winning, and they had those big games with the Raiders, and he was always Dawson to Taylor is what it's the thing that stuck in my mind, and that's what we'd go out in the backyard and throw, and of course I had to beat Lenny. I couldn't. So I'd have my neighbor diving all over the place for the ball, but it was a lot of fun.
It's kind of eerie because he is an awful lot like what I was physically from that point to the type of offense that he is running, much like what we ran in the 60s and early 70s. And I see a lot of myself in Joe Montana.
An athlete who, in many ways, is no different from the rest of us.
If I didn't take this step, I would be always wondering, oh, God, what would happen if I'd done this? Should I have done this? Should I not? And this gives me an opportunity to get back on the field and play for the Super Bowl. Everybody says, well, you've had 4 Super Bowls. But it's like anything. If you don't know what it's like, then you really don't miss it as much. But once, it's like having a piece of chocolate, and you give you a piece of chocolate, and if you never had chocolate, you wouldn't really miss it. But once you have it, you understand what it's about, and you want to go back. And that's the biggest thing, is getting back to the Super Bowl.
The cover of the Chiefs media guide shows a football breaking through a barrier. Even though there's no mention of Joe Montana, the message is clear. Kansas City is relying on the Montana experience, arm, and attitude to take the Chiefs to a new level, to break through that playoff barrier and head towards something truly super.
Just ahead on Inside the NFL, a talk with Cowboys head coach Jimmy Johnson. America's team is trying to overcome early turmoil.
There's only one thing harder than achieving success in the NFL: sustaining it. Most preseason predictions had the Dallas Cowboys repeating as Super Bowl champions, but history is against them. 8 times a Super Bowl champion hasn't even made the playoffs the following season. Now, is Jimmy Johnson up to the task of keeping his Cowboys on top? Let's find out from the coach Johnson himself, who's with Nick.
Jimmy, if teams that were coached by Bill Parcells, Joe Gibbs, and Bill Walsh couldn't even make the playoffs after a Super Bowl championship, how are you going to maintain the intensity and focus of your players to repeat this year?
Well, obviously, we got to get back on track, and we got to play better than what we did against the Redskins. But I really think that we have the talent on this football team that can get back on track. And if we get focused like what we should be, then I think that we can make the playoffs and go from there.
Yeah, but how about you personally? I mean, you won a national championship at the University of Miami. Now you won a Super Bowl. How do you keep your intensity up?
Well, my intensity is up just from week to week to get the guys to go out there and play the best they can play. And what we did in the past is history, and most coaches live from year to year, and every year is a new year.
Transition, I think, is the common word in the NFL, and I know how important your former defensive coordinator, Dave Wanstead, was to your defense, which was #1 in the NFL last year. Now, last week, your team gave up 35 points to the Washington Redskins. Is the defense still adjusting to life without Wanstead?
No, I really compare this game to the game we played against Philadelphia on Monday night early in the season last year. Almost a similar type score, same type statistics. We were gambling a lot the second half to try to get the ball back. The big key to this game, we had 4 fumbles, and a year ago we had 9 fumbles lost the entire year. You can't turn the ball over and expect to win.
Well, I guess part of that, and I know you're sick of the Emmitt Smith questions, but I guess We're going to talk to you. We just have to ask you a little bit about it. Do you think that your owner, Jerry Jones, is doing everything possible to put the best team on the field so that you can repeat as Super Bowl champs?
Well, I think Jerry's doing everything that he can do and try to stay within the salary cap that we expect next year, and so he's trying to do what's best for the club, and obviously Emmitt's trying to get the best contract that he can get for his worth. We need Emmitt Smith. We're a better football team with Emmitt Smith, and more than anything else, it would eliminate a big distraction right now. But Jerry's got to do what's best for the club.
Well, what is the status of that right now?
Right now, from my understanding, it's at a standstill. They haven't even talked the last few days.
Well, this week here you have the Buffalo Bills, and in all due respect to Brian Mitchell from the Redskins, who had a great running game against you last week, he's not a Thurman Thomas. Now, how is your defense going to make changes to stop Thurman Thomas and that Bills offense?
Well, the thing we've got to do is go back to basics. We tried some things a little bit different against the Redskins. They took advantage of them, and we didn't make plays. We weren't able to blitz. We weren't able to do some of the things that we were successful with against Washington in past years. We have made some adjustments, and I think we'll be fine from now on out.
Jimmy, good luck. I know you'll get these guys on track real soon.
Appreciate it, Nick.
Back to you, Lenny.
Nick, thank you very much. Chris, Jimmy Johnson did a little tap dancing when asked about the questions with the negotiation between Jerry Jones and Emmitt. I got the feeling if Jimmy had the opportunity, he would sign Emmitt. Emmitt would be in camp getting ready for Buffalo.
Yeah, it's always easier to spend somebody else's money. We know that. But really the key number in this contract negotiation is what Thurman Thomas is making, $3.3 million. And Jerry Jones, he's just wrong here. You have to pay Emmitt what Thurman got. Both those teams have to deal with the salary cap next year. Emmitt Smith is right here.
And if folks don't think this is a distraction, of all the questions Nick asked Jimmy Johnson, he only asked one about the game itself. Well, last season's Super Bowl losers, the Buffalo Bills, show that their wounds have begun to heal. As for the defending champs, well, Mr. Smith did not go to Washington, and Dallas looked ordinary.
On Monday night, the defending Super Bowl champions marched into RFK Stadium without Emmitt Smith. But at first, his absence didn't appear to matter.
Aikman straight drop, sets, pressure, steps up, deep ball, man. Harper's all alone at the 40, Harper to the 20. He can stand on his head and roll in with this one. 80 yards.
Alvin Harper's 80-yard score, however, was the beginning and the end for Dallas, as Washington took over on Mark Rippon's 16-yard touchdown toss to Ricky Sanders. Art Monk may not have started for Washington, but he finished off a 99-yard drive.
He throws him to the left side of the end zone for Monk. A beautiful catch. Touchdown, Redskins. Beautiful throw and catch from Mark Rippon to Art Monk. My goodness. Take a picture of that and send that one right on to Canton.
Washington overpowered the NFL's #1 ranked defense from a year ago, a unit whose effectiveness was missed more than Emmitt Smith. And with just over 2 minutes left, Dallas took the final blow, a 29-yard touchdown run by Brian Mitchell. Dallas has just 1 week to recover before their Super Bowl rematch with the Buffalo Bills, who last week hosted another former champion, Bill Parcells, and the New England Patriots. New England arrived with new uniforms and a new quarterback, top pick Drew Bledsoe, who received a hearty, if not warm, welcome from Bruce Smith. Bledsoe threw 2 touchdowns, and the Patriots kept it close, but they were no match for Buffalo's Andre Reed. The most prolific passing combination active in the NFL today, Jim Kelly and Andre Reed connected for 3 scores to bring their career collaboration to 47. Kelly and Reed were the difference in the game, but rookie Russell Copeland closed out Buffalo's 21-point fourth quarter with a 47-yard punt return.
And he gets the punt away. And here is Copeland at the 47 of New England, down to the 45, to the 40. And he's still on his feet. He's at the 35, at the 30, at the 25, the 20, the 15, the 10, the 5. Touchdown! He runs in for the score. What a play by Russell Copeland. It is pandemonium here at Rich Stadium.
The Bills came off Week 1 with a win and momentum for this Sunday's big matchup with Dallas, while Bill Parcells and the Patriots went home empty-handed.
Patriots went home empty-handed. The Bills went home with an injured quarterback. Jim Kelly got hurt in that ball game. On Thursday morning, he went through an MRI examination. Apparently, it proved negative because he practiced Thursday afternoon. Nick, this is an indication to me that Kelly on Sunday should be able to go against Dallas.
Yeah, he's going to be hobbling, though, Lenny. He's going to be a target for that Dallas defense who'll be sitting in that pocket. Talking about the Dallas defense, I thought Jimmy Johnson in the interview really played down the loss of his defensive coordinator, Dave Wanstead, when he went to Chicago. I mean, Dave Wanstead was the heart and soul of that defense. I remember when I was playing with the Dolphins and we won our second Super Bowl, our defensive coordinator, Bill Arnsberger, left, went to the Giants. Our defense just wasn't the same. We did not have the same focus. We did not have the same intensity. We made mistakes that we never made before. I think Dallas is going to go through the same thing this year. This Dallas defense will not be #1 in the NFL.
That's a good point. And I also believe that this is the week that the Dallas Cowboys find out just how much they're going to miss Emmitt Smith. You go back to the Super Bowl a year ago, Emmitt was running the football so effectively that Buffalo was forced to bring their safeties up into run support. That left their corners one-on-one against Michael Irvin and Alvin Harper. They came up with some big plays. Well, those big plays aren't going to be there this week because Emmitt Smith's not there. I look for the Bills to play much better.
Talking about Emmitt Smith and running attack, hey, the other guys on the other side, the Buffalo Bills, they were the #1 rushing team in the National Football League last year. They rushed for 177 yards in the first game, and I do recall on Monday night, the Cowboys gave up 171 yards rushing, so it's the Cowboy defense that should be concerned. Now, talking about the loss of Emmitt Smith, should I assume that you're picking the Bills to win?
No, I made that mistake last year. I like the Dallas Cowboys. The Buffalo Bills have a couple of injuries besides Jim Kelly. Kent Hall, their all-pro center, is out, and Bruce Smith hurt his shoulder last week. You've got to be 100% to beat these Cowboys. I like Dallas.
You're getting smarter all the time. I picked Dallas, too, because they're too good a team. Jimmy Johnson is too good a coach, and I like them winning at home.
Well, I think they're unleashing that defense this week. They may have some problems, but they don't have that many problems. I like Dallas at home also.
Oh, we all agree on this. Okay. You know, for the past 3 seasons, no one has challenged the Bills in the AFC. But as we saw in Week 1, the old power, the Raiders, and a new one, the Chargers, reasserted themselves. Another contender, the Broncos, unveiled a dazzling rookie running back. And in Indianapolis, the Dolphins had an early test of character.
After a prolonged holdout where he complained about hometown booing, Colt quarterback Jeff George has been dubbed Boy George. And last Sunday, he was taught some man-sized lessons by tight end Keith Jackson and quarterback Dan Marino.
Marino drops the throw in the pocket, has time, dumps it across the middle, caught by Jackson. He breaks tackle. Holy Toledo, what a play by Keith Jackson.
Marino connected twice for touchdowns with Jackson to give Miami a 17-10 lead. Before George's replacement, Jack Trudeau rallied the Colts to a 3-point fourth-quarter lead. In the end, Marino struck back, and for the 25th time in his career, Dapper Dan pulled out a fourth-quarter come-from-behind win.
Fakes it, throws in the end zone, caught for a touchdown to Greg Beatty. Yes!
Next up for the Dolphins are the New York Jets, who celebrated their first week of the season with the inspiring return of former defensive lineman Dennis Byrd. Incredibly, 1 year after his paralyzing injury, Byrd returned to the Meadowlands walking on his own, hoping to give his team an emotional lift. While the Jets did have their moments of courageous effort, it was a case of too little, too late. suffocating, sack-happy Bronco defense limited the Jets to a pair of field goals in the first 3 quarters. Denver built up a 26-6 lead thanks to some timely John Elway passing and nifty moves by rookie Glenn Milburn.
Second down and 10 from the 25. Blitz on. Throw goes to Milburn. Spins away at the 20. To the right side he goes. He shoots another man. 10-5, and he is into the end zone for a touchdown. Oh, what moves by Milburn.
This week, the Broncos point to the San Diego Chargers, who began their defense of the 1992 AFC West Championship in rather unseattling fashion, as the Seahawks took the lead less than a minute into the game.
Humphries looking, still looking. Now breaks down. He lobs it, batted in the air, and it is intercepted by the Seahawks. At the 10, at the 5, touchdown, Joe Nash! Joe Nash!
Joe Nash's interception return was the game's only touchdown in a defensive battle where the Chargers came down hard and heavy on rookie quarterback Rick Meyer. The difference in the game was 6 John Carney field goals, including this 51-yarder.
End over end on the way. Goal!
This week, the Seahawks go up against the Los Angeles Raiders, whose owner Al Davis is already gloating over his free agent signing of quarterback Jeff Hostetler.
Hostetler, a short drop, looking, fires downfield. It is caught for a touchdown.
Against Minnesota, Haas was a hit, connecting on 23 of 27 passes in a performance that contrasted to counterpart Jim McMahon. McMahon was harassed all day, and it was Raider pressure that pressed him into one ill-advised pass.
Now scrambles, goes off the back foot, soars it, and it's picked off. Intercepted by the Raiders. And down the sideline. And into the end zone. McDaniel on the pickoff.
The Raiders prevailed 24-7 over a Viking team that returns home this week to face their arch-rival, the Chicago Bears.
After that solid performance against the Vikings, the Raiders could be one of the surprises of the 1993 season. And as we check the NFL Newswire, we see that the Silver and Black are about to get more help. All-purpose wonder Rocket Ismail signed with the Raiders August 31st, was on the sidelines in L.A. for last Sunday's game, but he is expected to be used this week against Seattle on kickoff returns. And it is the year of the graying quarterbacks in the National Football League. The average age 31 made this the oldest group of quarterbacks entering a season since 1970. Already some of the ancient warriors are having problems. Steve DeBerg, the oldest player in the league at 39, has already lost his starting job to Craig Erickson. Joe Montana, his right wrist still swollen, has yet to throw a pass this week. Phil Simms survived Game 1 with the Bears, but just barely. 36-year-old Warren Moon, he was marched on by the Saints, sacked 3 times. He suffered bruised ribs, but he is expected to play Sunday. And the youngster of this group, 33-year-old Jim Kelly, he's already struggling with a tender right knee. Now with more news and some views, here's Chris with Gary Myers.
All right, Lenny, thank you very much. Gary, we'll start with the biggest story in the National Football League, Emmitt Smith. Now, the Dallas Cowboys are 26th in the league in payroll. Why aren't they going to pay Emmitt Smith?
Now, Chris, I spoke with Jerry Jones on Thursday afternoon, and this guy is solidly entrenched in his position that he's not going to pay Emmitt Smith $1 more than he would have to pay him as a franchise back, which means 4 years, $11 million. He doesn't care what Thurman Thomas is making in Buffalo. And I get the impression that the longer this holdout goes on, which there's no end in sight right now, the offer could get reduced as Emmitt starts missing some more games.
Any chance that they would trade him?
No chance whatsoever.
How about the relationship between Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson? Has this soured it in any way?
No, I don't really think so. I think what's happened here is, sure, Jerry, is trying to get him signed. Jimmy definitely wants him in.
But Jimmy removed himself from all contract negotiations a couple of years ago, and I don't really think this has put a strain on it any more than it is already.
Well, I know it's only the first week of the season, but we've got to talk about potential firings of coaches. Who is on the chopping block? Who's in the most danger for this season?
Well, I think you have a bunch of guys. First of all, in Atlanta, the Falcons spent a lot of money in the offseason signing free agents. Pierce Holt got the only fully guaranteed contract of all the free agents. The Super Bowl is in Atlanta this year. The owners want the Falcons to be in it. I'd say Jerry Glanville has to win pretty quickly this year.
How about Joe Bugle in Phoenix?
Well, Bill Bidwell has already said that Bugle needs to win 9 games this year to keep his job. I think the pressure is getting to Bugle at halftime of the season opener. He benched Steve Berline, a quarterback they spent $7.5 million to sign.
How strange is the relationship in Houston? Jack Pardee and Buddy Ryan, is that going to resolve itself? Can the Houston Oilers win with a big mess down there?
It's really getting worse, Chris. This is the worst offense-defense split I've ever seen. Buddy calling the run and shoot to Chuck and Duck. He says it's a third-down offense, not a professional offense. Ernest Givens being critical of Buddy for criticizing the offense. Warren Moon saying, hey, I wish everybody would just shut up and play. Jack Pardee had Buddy Ryan kind of shoved down him in the offseason. He was hired, and Pardee had no say in it.
Do you think that Jack Pardee ever considered resigning because of the way that Buddy Ryan was hired?
No, I don't think so. There's only 28 of these jobs. He's got 2 years on his contract. He's making $500,000 a year. You just don't walk away from these jobs.
Yeah, big money tends to keep you in that job. Speaking of money, though, Joe Montana, I understand, has a chance to make a little more cash this year.
As if he's not making enough already, right? He's making $4.8 million in Kansas City this year in salary and signing bonus, but he has a chance to make another $1 million in incentives if he's the starting quarterback and Kansas City wins the Super Bowl. And I think the Chiefs would be very happy to pay him that money.
The guy's already taking enough money from me. I don't care if he makes any more or not. Gary, we'll see you next week.
Okay, Chris.
Lenny, back to you.
Thanks, guys. This past week, the Eagles gave some proof that free agency hadn't completely clipped their wings. Over in Green Bay, the money trail may be leading to the Super Bowl. Yes, the 49ers don't have Joe anymore, but they still have Steve to count on. And in Cleveland, some exceptional role models were in evidence.
Sometimes it's best to look to the past to help build the future. Maybe that's why the Browns have made Hall of Famer Jim Brown a team consultant, and why former All-Pro Ken Anderson has been called on to tutor Bengal quarterback David Klingler. And on Sunday, the young pupil was already showing the deft touch of his mentor. Klingler's touchdown pass to Carl Pickens put the Bengals up 14-0 in the first quarter. But Klingler then got some further education from another former Pro Bowl quarterback, Bernie Kosar. Kosar's touchdown pass to Michael Dyson helped tie the score at 14. Dyson is the former Michael Jackson, but the name change hasn't hurt him. He's still as dangerous as ever, and he no longer has to worry about his name being smeared in the tabloids. Actually, the headline news on Sunday was Cleveland's defense, which cramped Klingler's quarterback lessons by dumping him for 6 sacks. The Browns also forced 3 turnovers, one of which clinched a win in the fourth quarter.
Klingler drops back into the pocket. Team split, hit from behind, fumbles the ball. The Browns have it. Steve on Moore at the 10. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Touchdown, Browns!
Big plays like the one by Stevan Moore are just what the Browns will need this Monday night against the 49ers and Steve Young. Last Sunday, Young's fractured thumb had healed enough to allow him to start in Pittsburgh.
I'm going to tell you something, man. We control the tempo in this stadium. And we're going to play 45 guys for 60 minutes, whatever it takes. Let's get it done, baby.
Unfortunately for the Steelers, their starting quarterback, Neil O'Donnell, was still bothered by a sore elbow, and backup Mike Tomczak suffered through a tough first half that included 2 interceptions. While Tomczak struggled, Young had no problem finding his favorite target, Jerry Rice.
To the other side against C.J. Johnson, and that's where they're going for. Rice makes the catch. It's a touchdown for the 49ers.
Rice caught 2 first-half scoring passes thanks to effective play fakes to Ricky Waters and an over-aggressive blitzing Steelers defense that left him wide open underneath.
Young play fake, comes back to the left, gets it to Rice, makes a cut inside on Johnson, dives into the end zone. A touchdown for the 49ers.
That's why we kill them. They just coming. That's why everybody wide open. Keep in, baby. That's what we want. Freak them. They don't. But I want let him keep doing that, because we chilling. What I'm saying, let him get killed.
Down 17-0, the Steelers did keep coming. Continued Steelers blitzes kept the heat on Young, and a switch to sore-armed Neil O'Donnell in the second half lit a fire under the Pittsburgh offense. O'Donnell drove his team 80 yards on the opening drive of the third quarter.
Giving the ball to Foster. Foster over the left side. Touchdown, Pittsburgh.
Barry Foster's scoring run cut the 49er lead to 17-10. It was now up to San Francisco's young defense to regain momentum.
One more, we in it. One more, we in it. You got to go out and play your tails off and get it. We're going to win this thing on defense now. We got to go out and get it now. Let's go.
Effective blitzing over match blockers like Barry Foster as the 49ers totaled 5 sacks on the day to preserve the lead, allowing Steve Young to put the game away in the fourth quarter. The Steelers will need to tighten up their pass coverage this week against the Rams. Of course, they won't be facing Steve Young, a quarterback whose toughness on Sunday was hard to question. Well, hard for most to question.
How come you cry so much, man? I did not cry. I knocked the wind out of me. Can I have the wind knocked? You ever had the wind knocked out of you? Have you ever had the wind knocked out of you? I miss playing against you twice a year. Let's see. Good luck. Hey, have you ever had the wind knocked out of you? Yeah. I was like, didn't even stand over me going, what are you crying for? I love it myself.
Coming back here against this defense opening day, it's a test. I mean, I'm really happy the way we jumped on them. Obviously, we'll get kind of yelled at for our little lull there, but then we fought back when the crowd got into it and showed that, we're playing good ball right off the start. So a tough place to come and play in Pittsburgh. I'm very happy to get the win.
Packer fans have nearly become catatonic, awaiting their team's return to glory. And this could finally be the season their patience is rewarded, with new additions like Reggie White helping to shake the cobwebs. Green Bay's new-look defense dominated the line of scrimmage, limiting the Rams to 53 yards rushing, and accounted for the Packers' first points of the season with a first-quarter safety.
Did he get out or not? It is a safety, says the official.
It was a return to Packers' blood-and-guts football with a few lucky bounces thrown in for good measure.
Here's Brett Favre straight back in the pocket, and he slipped as he tried to set up. Now he's on the run. Now he's throwing downfield to Sterling Sharp. Sharp trying to get in position, and he got it. Touchdown, Sterling Sharp.
This week, it's a rematch between Reggie and his former team, the Eagles, who are trying to make up for the loss of White with new names, fresh faces, and the same old philosophy. Kidding. The revamped defense stuffed the Cardinal rushing attack, while a familiar face on offense was once again back on the run. Randall Cunningham's score staked the Eagles to a 14-0 lead. But it was a new name in the backfield that stirred up the most excitement. Free agent rookie Vaughn Hebron.
At the 30, at the 25, at the 15, cuts back at the 10, on his feet at the 5! Vaughn Hebron! He's making people miss left and right. Cunningham to Hebron, off right tackle, up the middle, touchdown! Vaughn Hebron! His first in the NFL!
Hebron's touchdown proved to be the winning score, and this week Philly's new hero will run head-on into its old one, Reggie White, in a showdown in Green Bay. Ahead, the tragedy that followed triumph for ex-Packer Lionel Aldridge. And a new feature, Boomer Esiason with our first player diary.
You know, Nick, I can hardly wait to see the video diary of Boomer Esiason because, Chris, I think your old teammate wants your job.
He can have it. He's got everything else. He can have this, too.
All right. You know, we're only into the second week, but we already have some terrific matchups. One is Philadelphia at Green Bay. Reggie White, the most celebrated of free agents, against his former team. But, Chris, I don't think there's a whole lot of love lost between Reggie and the owner of the Eagles, Norman Brayman.
No, you're right. And I think the Eagles are headed for the tank this year. Not only are all the free agents leaving the owner, Norman Brayman, but this week he really screwed up. He fired his pro personnel director, Joe Woolley, simply for violating a team gag order and criticizing the organization. Now, Norman Brayman's done some good things for the Philadelphia Eagles, but right now his paranoia is hurting that club.
Well, there's no paranoia up in Green Bay. I'll tell you this, they are taking care of business both on offense and defense. Their general manager, Ron Wolf, has looked at this team and said, we are going to go for the championship this year. Not only did they sign Reggie White, they signed, I thought, the most unsung hero on the Dolphin offensive line last year, Harry Galbraith. This guy could be a Pro Bowler, and they stole John Stevens from the New England Patriots in an offseason trade. The stars are shining very bright up in Green Bay right now.
Hey, let's not be burying the Eagles right now. If my memory serves me correctly, they did win last week. They beat Phoenix. Randall Cunningham had an outstanding game. And the guy that's going to be facing Reggie White, Chris, on every down is Anton Davis. He knows Reggie's moves because he worked against him last year every day in practice, so he shouldn't have a lot of problems.
Big deal. Reggie White's going to be living in the backfield with Randall Cunningham. I love the Packers.
I said he shouldn't have any problems. I didn't say he wouldn't. I do like Green Bay.
Well, they got roller skates for Anton Davis this week. Seth Joyner cannot do it all by himself. I also like the Green Bay Packers in their offense.
What do you know? We all agree for once. Well, 25 years have passed since the Packers played and won their second straight Super Bowl. Lionel Aldridge was a part of that Packer glory years. But for Aldridge, life after football has been mostly a cruel odyssey, as Kurt Gowdy tells us in this week's Where Are They Now?
Lionel Aldridge played defensive end for the great Packer Super Bowl teams in the 60s.
I got to play football with some of the best football players that ever put the uniform on. Within 3 months after I retired, I started having problems. First of all, just had difficulty concentrating, staying focused on the work, the responsibility that I had to do as a new broadcaster. And then I became paranoid in addition to that, which made working with me very difficult. I started suffering from schizophrenia, a severe form of mental illness. In the early 80s was the point at which I was probably the most bizarre. I got to a point where I was unable to work. I wasn't taking medication. I couldn't trust anyone. I couldn't be comfortable in any place. I felt that people were reading my thoughts and knew what was going on with me, even though I had never met them. I was hearing voices, and I thought my wife was a witch, so I was afraid to go home. I would see the people that are here, and I would also see the images of other people who were as much as 2,000 miles away from here, and I would be talking to those people. By 1981, my marriage had broken up, and I left Milwaukee to just travel around the country. My money soon ran out, so I started living on the streets, first in Florida, and then just hitchhiked from place to place, sleeping wherever I could. Too sick to know better. I stopped shaving and bathing, just wandering from place to place. I had a day when I was hallucinating and I could see the wind, and I couldn't escape from the wind, so in my mind, the voices were telling me that I had done something wrong and I was in trouble with God, and God was punishing me. In 1984, I made my way back to Milwaukee, where some friends took me to the hospital, and for a while, I was better. I found a steady job at the post office, and in 1989, I began doing speaking engagements full-time. But without the structure of a steady job and a routine, my problems returned, and before long, I was homeless again. About a year ago, Donald Moses from the organization Health Care for the Homeless found me barefoot living on the streets of Milwaukee.
He was fighting for his sanity. We didn't make any promises. We just say, Lionel, one day at a time. One day, stay inside. That's all. It was critical that he stay inside.
Lionel recuperated for several months in New Mexico, and recently he's moved back to Milwaukee. He's begun work as a spokesman for the National Alliance of the Mentally Ill.
I do think I have some things to say. I think that the experience of living with this illness and developing some of your own techniques to recover from it have put some words to some of the silence that surrounds schizophrenia. These are brain diseases that are treatable, and we need to take the fear out of it.
The disease has cost Lionel, his family and friends, jobs and money. It has not, however, stolen his heroic determination to become whole again.
Unfortunately, not all of our Where Are They Now stories are happy ones, but what we try to do is show you what life has been like for some of the players who played the game. Now, this year we have a new feature offering you more insight on current players. Oilers quarterback Warren Moon, Raiders defensive end Howie Long, and Jets quarterback Boomer Esiason are providing us with video diaries on a rotating basis. To begin, Mr. Esiason.
After 9 years in Cincinnati, I finally got traded to the New York Jets and back home to Long Island. And boy, was I excited, because I get the chance to live in a beautiful neighborhood just like this. Look at these houses. They're gorgeous. Now, let me show you my house. Oh, boy, you know, this whole experience of moving has been the ultimate 2-minute drill for me. I asked my contractor to get my house ready in 2 weeks, and he said, no problem. But I got to be realistic. He's done a great job. Although he's not done yet, of course. So let's go see. Well, welcome to my garage. This is where I actually practice my broken field running, and hopefully someday I'll have my car parked in here. Hey, Mark. Obviously you're not done yet, kid, are you? Well, welcome to our new basement, and I've been looking for my daughter. This is actually the box I think she came in. We'll find her somewhere, I'm sure. Oh, and this is our dining room, or otherwise, hey, there's the baby. Hi, Sydney. How you doing, sweetie? Well, this is our box room, and Sydney likes to play in our box room. But, Sydney, here, you got to sit in your rocking chair here with Mr. Ted, and you hold on to the Jet football, okay? Okay? Daddy has to go do some work. Well, this is my TV room right here, and hopefully someday I'll be able to watch TV. What do you think, guys? 2 weeks! 2 weeks! Remember, a general rule of thumb is when they say 2 weeks, they mean 2 months. I'll see you again in 3 weeks.
Chris, your buddy Boomer is destroying the image of quarterbacks who are neat and organized.
I guess those 10 maids haven't shown up in Cincinnati yet. That guy will be all right. Troy.
All right, the pick segment has shown up. Somebody's got to dethrone Gary from last year as a top prognosticator. Let's see how we did last week. Uh-oh. Gary's up on top by 2 games once again. Now, for this week's picks, first, the games that we agree on. Detroit will beat New England, Indianapolis over Cincinnati, the Giants over Tampa Bay, the Raiders defeating the Seahawks, Washington downing Phoenix, and Pittsburgh should get by the Rams. Now, in other games, Chicago at Minnesota, McMahon facing his old team. How about this, Gary? Chicago or Minnesota?
Well, they had a lot of problems last week running the ball and protecting McMahon because 60% of their offensive line from last year is gone. Barry Ward, the running back they picked up from Kansas City, plays his first game. I like Minnesota to beat a mediocre Chicago team.
Yeah, I can't see Dennis Green allowing the Minnesota Vikings to lose 2 in a row. They're playing at home, and Chicago offensively is nowhere. I like Minnesota.
I just think that Dave Wannstedt is going to be able to take advantage of some of those holes in the Minnesota offensive line. I like the Bears.
Well, you got to have people to do that, and I think Minnesota has better people than Chicago. The next game up, Nick, we got New Orleans at Atlanta. The Saints last year swept the Falcons. What about this year?
Well, very simply, Chris Miller got sacked 6 times last week up at Detroit. New Orleans has a better defense than Detroit. I love New Orleans.
Yeah, the Saints took advantage of Houston's run-and-shoot offense last week. They'll take advantage of Atlanta's this week. I like the Saints.
Despite what happened last week, I really think that Atlanta's going to be one of the more improved teams in the league this season. And their home opener, I think they'll play much better than they did last week against Detroit, and I think they'll beat New Orleans.
Oh, I think the Saints are really for real. This is their year to go all the way to the Super Bowl. I like New Orleans. Oh, we got the Jets at Miami. Chris, you know, the Jets won 3 out of the last 4 against Miami. What about this trip?
Yeah, Boomer Esiason has made this Jets offense a better offense. And no, I like the Miami Dolphins. I just think they're one of the best teams right now in the AFC.
Boomer's going to be mad at you for that one. But if the Jets couldn't win last week when they had Dennis Byrd there before the game, providing a lot of emotional energy, and they couldn't beat, not a real great Denver team at home. I don't see how they can go down to Miami and win this game.
Well, the Jets don't have Ken O'Brien. We all know the nemesis he was for the Dolphins, and the Dolphins' defense is a great one this year. I like Miami at home.
Well, the Dolphins still have Marino. I think enough said about that. Miami should win this one. We've got San Diego at Denver. Hey, Denver, rookie running back, sensation from Stanford, Glenn Milburn, over 100 all-purpose yards. Now, Gary, how about this game?
Well, I think San Diego was a little deceiving last year. They know they won 11 of their last 12, but the only 2 games they won in that streak against a team that finished above 500 was the 2 times they beat Indianapolis. I think they might be a little overrated. I think they'll lose in Denver.
I think Denver is the most improved team in the National Football League. Solid offensive line. John Elway has a lot of targets out there and a good defense. I like Denver.
Yeah, one of those targets being Rod Bernstein to go along with Glenn Milburn. I like Denver, too.
Well, I tell you, playing in Mile High Stadium, we all know is very difficult. I like Denver as well. Now, our last game, we got San Francisco at Cleveland, Nick, and the 49ers lost 2 starters in Week 1 to injury. That's fullback Tom Rathman and defensive end Kevin Fagan. Do you think that's going to have an effect?
Well, it will. Especially Steve Young did not have a good game last week. He threw 3 interceptions. But I think there's a lot of holes in that Cleveland secondary, so I'm going to take San Francisco.
Yeah, and the Steelers' defensive backfield is much better than the Cleveland Browns. That's who the 49ers played last week. I think the 49ers keep rolling.
I really like what Bill Belichick is doing with that rush and crush defense. He also picked up Pepper Johnson. I like Cleveland to win this game.
Well, I like San Francisco. I think they just have too much talent. Now, let's quickly get our Super Bowl picks. Gary, starting with you.
I like Dallas to repeat, even though they got off to a rough start. I like Kansas City, your old team, in the AFC, though I'd feel better about them if Joe Montana was wearing number 16.
I like the Miami Dolphins to win the AFC. This is not a homer pick. They just have a good team this year. Right. I like San Francisco in the NFC, but to win it all, the 49ers.
Buffalo to go back to a 4th straight Super Bowl, but the 49ers get them this time. I like San Francisco.
The Saints are for real. They're going to come marching in. They will be in the Super Bowl, but the Kansas City Chiefs will beat them. Now, let's recap who we selected. Gary said that it's going to be the Cowboys over the Chiefs. Chris, 49ers over the Bills. I say the Chiefs over the Saints, and the 49ers over the Dolphins for Nick Buonacane. A program reminder for all our viewers, we premiere 11 p.m. Eastern and Pacific every Thursday. And if you miss us at that time, catch us Friday at 7 p.m. Eastern and Pacific, or Saturday, 11 a.m. Eastern and Pacific. That's our show for this week, folks. We sure hope you enjoyed it. We sure hope you'll join us next week. A reminder, coming up October 1st on HBO from Cardiff, Wales, it's World Championship Boxing. Fellow Englishmen Lennox Lewis and Frank Bruno, the WBC heavyweight title at stake. Catch it live at 7:30 Eastern and Pacific. Who is the only person ever elected to both the Baseball and Football Halls of Fame? For the answer to that and many more sports questions, join Barry Bonds, Shaquille O'Neal, Troy Aikman, and many more superstars. It's the Sports Illustrated for Kids Slam Dunk, Home Run, Touchdown TV Sports Quiz, October 2nd, 7:30 Eastern and Pacific.
I was the first black quarterback to start an NFL season. Tune in next week to find out where I am now.
Finally here. Finally here. First NFL game. Real game, you know what I mean? First real game. Oh, I don't feel like a rookie right now.
Did you go to belly and then audible out of it, or did you call something different in the hospital?
I called belly and then audible, did 200 just dragging.
Slot, out of the slot, out of the slot.
Gotta do a good job on the screen now. Right there, big. Gotta keep scoring.
This has been a presentation of HBO Sports, the network of champions.